Joe Rogan just made a bold statement that's got everyone talking. He brought up something unexpected, Ellen DeGeneres, in connection to the latest buzz around Diddy. Rogan questioned why people seem so quiet about certain celebrities when old connections start to resurface. And honestly, it's a fair question. Are people overlooking the bigger picture?
Talking about Diddy and his oil parties with these 18-year-olds, do I think it's good? No. I want to beat up their dad, but other than that, I don't really give.
After Diddy's recent legal troubles made headlines, the internet started revisiting old celebrity interviews. A lot of fans noticed that Ellen and Diddy shared several lighthearted moments on her show, joking about parties and fame. But looking back now, people are seeing those conversations in a completely different light.
All right, we're back with Sean Diddy Combs. Is it Diddy today? Because sometimes you're Puffy and sometimes you're Diddy. Or sometimes you're Daddy. What are you today?
I'm so confused today with it, as long as you say it in a nice way.
Here's where Joe Rogan's point really comes in. He said it's strange that no one is questioning Ellen's connection to Diddy, considering they spoke openly about his parties on national television. He didn't accuse her of anything. He just asked why there's so much silence from major public figures who were once so close to the story.
I guess Diddy just kept people at his houses because he's got multiple houses and he's just had freak out part. Look at him. Look at Saucy sit down and go, Saucy.
Yeah, no, Saucy's crazy. Have you seen Saucy?
And here's where things really start to get interesting. Remember when the Ellen DeGeneres show was canceled back in 2022 after all those reports about a toxic workplace? Well, it turns out that wasn't the end of her troubles, not even close. After years of being one of the most beloved daytime hosts in America, Ellen suddenly found herself at the center of controversy. The woman who built her brand on the phrase, "be kind," was being accused by former employees of creating a workplace that was anything but kind. According to multiple reports from BuzzFeed News and Variety, staff described a culture filled with intimidation, unfair treatment, and fear. Some said they were fired for taking time off to deal with personal losses. Others claimed they faced discrimination and were constantly walking on eggshells. The phrase, "be kind," one former producer said, was just something Ellen said when the cameras were rolling, not something that existed behind the scenes. The backlash was massive. 3 senior producers were fired, and Ellen had to issue a public apology on air. But even after all that, many people felt like she dodged real accountability. She claimed she didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, even though it was her name on the show. The show struggled to recover. Ratings dropped, public trust faded, and by 2022, Ellen announced it was officially ending. Publicly, she said she wanted to move on to new challenges. But behind the scenes, everyone knew her image was deeply damaged. Then came another surprise. After the 2024 U.S. election, Ellen and her wife, Portia, quietly sold their luxurious Montecito home and moved to the UK. She told the media she wanted a fresh start and even mentioned that she might never come back to America. But people couldn't help asking, was it really about a fresh start, or was there something she was trying to distance herself from? Especially now, when new Hollywood controversies were breaking out and old connections, including hers, were being re-examined. So before we get into Joe Rogan's comments, it's important to understand why Ellen's name keeps resurfacing in these conversations. Her fall from grace wasn't just about workplace issues, it represented something bigger. It showed how quickly a carefully built public image can collapse when the truth starts to surface.
As you may have heard, this summer there were allegations of a toxic work environment at our show, and then there was an investigation. I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were affected.
So now, let's get into what Joe Rogan actually said about Ellen and her possible connection to all this. During one of his recent podcast episodes, Rogan brought up how strange it is that so many celebrities used to openly talk about Diddy's famous parties, as if it was a badge of honor. He mentioned how actors and musicians, including Ashton Kutcher and others, would casually joke about attending those events for years. And one of the main people who had those kinds of conversations with Diddy, right on camera, was none other than Ellen DeGeneres. Rogan didn't accuse her of anything directly, but he questioned the silence. He pointed out that Ellen interviewed Diddy multiple times, laughed about his parties, and even teased him about what really went on there. Yet now that those same parties are part of a criminal investigation, she hasn't said a single word. It's that silence, Rogan said, that makes people suspicious. When so many big names once bragged about knowing the inside world of Hollywood, but suddenly act like they've never seen or heard anything, that's when questions...
I don't have any real personal beef with Diddy, but it's got to go down. The bits are there. I'm a gold miner. I just found some gold.
Rogan then pointed out something that a lot of people have quietly been wondering. How did all these famous people go to Diddy's parties and not notice anything unusual? The charges against Diddy aren't small. Investigators claim some of those late-night events involved illegal activities. And yet, many celebrities who once talked about attending those parties have gone completely silent, including Ellen. In one 2018 interview, Diddy even joked with Ellen on her show, saying, "I invite you to all my parties, but you never show up." Then, he mentioned how the real parties didn't start until after midnight, on the top floors of hotels. Ellen laughed and replied, "Oh, I know about them," which at the time sounded like friendly banter, but now that clip is resurfacing with a very different tone. Rogan's point was simple. When someone publicly acknowledged knowing about those gatherings and now avoids all questions about them, it raises eyebrows. It doesn't prove guilt, but it does show how little accountability there is among the most powerful people in entertainment.
Is that going to be a new thing? Are you going to try to be early?
Yes, I'm trying to be early.
Are you going to be early for my party?
Yes, I am. No.
No.
You know I have to arrive fashionably late.
All right. Not too late, though.
Not too late?
Not too late,
What
please.
time would you like me there?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But not too late, because you know, once you get there, the party really starts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But things got even more interesting after Diddy's arrest in late 2024. Almost overnight, old clips of Ellen and Diddy together started going viral again. People began asking tough questions online. What did Ellen really know? And why isn't she speaking out? One resurfaced moment that drew attention was a 2016 tweet where Ellen jokingly called Diddy Cuddle McNuggle stuff. Back then, it seemed harmless, just typical Ellen humor. But now, in light of the allegations, fans are reading it differently. And when paparazzi recently asked her directly about Diddy's case, Ellen looked visibly tense and refused to answer. The footage spread fast on social media, and people pointed out how uncomfortable she seemed. Her silence, saying more than words ever could. The internet started connecting dots, and for the first time in years, Ellen wasn't seen as the cheerful talk show host. She was being viewed as part of a much larger, much darker Hollywood story.
Right. Just, so you have, if you don't have what they need, they're going to leave.
Right.
Got to keep them there.
Right.
You need locks on the doors.
Okay, this is sounding kind of dangerous now.
It's a little kinky, but
yeah.
Joe Rogan's main point cuts right to the core. If Ellen was close enough to Diddy to host him several times, laugh about his parties on national TV, and even admit she knew about them, then why stay silent now that those same parties are part of a criminal investigation? Rogan wasn't accusing her of anything specific, but he was questioning the pattern of silence. He compared it to what we've seen time and time again in Hollywood. When powerful people are involved, everyone suddenly forgets how to ask questions. And that's where this story takes an even deeper turn. Because Ellen's connection to Diddy isn't just about friendship. It mirrors a much bigger issue about how influence, fear, and image control operate behind the scenes. Back when her own workplace scandal broke, multiple former employees described an environment built on silence and fear. People too scared to speak up about bad behavior because of power dynamics. That same culture, Rogan suggested, might be what allowed figures like Diddy to go unchecked for years. Even one of Ellen's former cameramen said she had this look, they called it the Ellen gaze, the kind that made people freeze. Others claimed she would blacklist anyone who crossed her, even banning certain celebrities for years over minor jokes. The similarities are striking: control, silence, and fear. In different ways, both Ellen's show and Diddy's world thrived on those same dynamics.
I do feel like you may not do that. You're neat, though, right? I would imagine your closet is color coordinated. Everything is hung in a certain,
yes.
Right? So you're neat. It's just that you're not the person that puts it back. All right.
In November 2024, right after Trump won the election, Ellen and her wife Portia sold their Montecito mansion and moved quietly to rural England. Ellen said it was for a simpler life, but the timing was suspicious. Diddy's legal troubles were heating up, and more celebrity names were being mentioned. Then a strange rumor spread online claiming Ellen had an arrest warrant connected to her former DJ, Steven Twitch boss. Fact-checkers later proved it false, but people still wondered why such a story even sounded believable. It showed how much Ellen's public image had changed. After years of controversy, people were ready to believe anything about her. In her 2024 Netflix special, For Your Approval, she joked about her downfall, saying, "The be kind girl wasn't kind." But to many, her jokes didn't sound like regret. They sounded like deflection. Instead of taking accountability, she seemed to be rewriting her own story while quietly living far away from the chaos.
Party, but there's a camera that swings around and they go, "Hey, yo, oh, Odell Beckham," and you see Justin Bieber's head come up from his crotch, and he looks in the camera and he's very confused. It's a really disturbing video.
At that time, Puff was the biggest guy in the world. You know, you couldn't even get in his parties. And he was throwing a party, and he said, "Yo, Playboy, this party's $1.5 million." I said, "For what? I mean, what are you saying?" "It costs $1.5 million to throw this party." I said, "Puff, I love it. The party's amazing. Yes, the mayor is here and everything." I said, "But that's too much money." I said, "You come to my place in LA, I'll throw your party for $400. That will rival this party." And he got a little mad. He was like, "Yo, no, I'm known for this shit. Don't."
In her Netflix special, For Your Approval, Ellen talked about her fall from grace. She said, "There are such extremes in this business. People either love you and idolize you or they hate you. And those people somehow are louder." It sounded less like an apology and more like frustration from someone who never expected to lose her spotlight. Instead of taking full responsibility, Ellen seemed to focus on how the backlash affected her rather than the people who worked under her. Then in May 2025, NFL star Aaron Rodgers appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast and made a strange comparison. He mentioned how Ellen's old talk show set looked oddly similar to a structure that had appeared in photos connected to another Hollywood scandal. Rogan quickly shut it down, saying it was just a coincidence, a building in Los Angeles that shared similar architecture. But once that clip hit the internet, it went viral. Conspiracy channels and social media users ran wild with the comparison, pushing the idea that maybe there was more symbolism behind Ellen's show than people realized. The fact that such a comparison even gained traction says a lot about where Ellen's reputation stands today. A decade ago, she was seen as a symbol of kindness, positivity, and acceptance. Now, people mention her name in the same breath as Hollywood's most controversial figures. For someone who built her entire brand on the phrase, "Be kind," that's a fall few could have predicted.
This leads me to the perfect thing, because I would like you to clear something up. There's
Yes.
a lot of talk going on with Chris Brown being at your place in Miami, and you arranging Chris and Rihanna getting back together.
And it's my house. And I'm allowed to get my house wherever I want to get my house.
Sure.
So that's number one. Number two is that I'm the type of person that I don't cast a stone or cast a judgment on anybody. And so if a friend or friends ask me for a favor, then I'm going to be there for a favor.
After that podcast clip went viral, Ellen vanished from public life. No new posts, no interviews. Complete silence. For someone who once ruled daytime TV, her disappearance felt strange. Rumors spread fast. Some claimed she'd moved to the English countryside. Others said a private island. None of it was confirmed, but everyone agreed Ellen didn't want to be found. Soon, Reddit threads began linking her to other famous figures who had also stepped away from Hollywood around the same time. Names like Oprah and Spielberg surfaced, though most of it was pure speculation. Still, the timing made people wonder if there was something bigger behind the scenes. News outlets called it the end of the talk show era. But to fans, it felt more like a quiet retreat, as if the faces that once shaped pop culture were now choosing silence over the spotlight. Ellen's disappearance became symbolic. Once everywhere, she was now nowhere, a reminder that fame can vanish faster than it's earned.
All right, well, let me catch up on what's been going on with me since you saw me last. I decided to take up gardening. I got chickens. Let me see what else I can tell you about that. It's been going on. Oh, yeah, I got kicked out of show business.
Months slowly turned into a year, and Ellen's silence became one of the strangest mysteries in entertainment. No interviews, no public appearances, no cheerful voice filling the airwaves. It was as if a part of pop culture had suddenly gone missing. At first, the media tried to keep the story alive. Reporters camped outside her old studio, waiting for a glimpse. But as weeks passed with no sign of her, even the paparazzi gave up. Ellen DeGeneres, one of the most recognizable faces in the world, had vanished into complete stillness. Behind closed doors, whispers began. Some said she had grown tired of the never-ending noise, of having to perform kindness even when she was breaking inside. Others claimed that the wave of backlash had left her hollow, that she couldn't bear to face the world that once cheered her name. But those who knew her best painted a different picture. They said Ellen had simply chosen peace. She had traded cameras for quiet mornings, crowds for nature, fame for stillness. In a small town by the ocean, she began painting again, something she'd loved before fame took over. She walked her dogs at sunrise, drank coffee with no schedule, and spent hours tending to her garden. For the first time in years, she didn't have to smile for anyone. She didn't have to be Ellen the brand. She could just be Ellen, a woman rediscovering what it meant to breathe without expectation. Meanwhile, the world kept searching. Every few months, a blurry photo would surface online, someone claiming to have spotted her at a local market or sitting quietly in a seaside cafe. Reddit threads filled with speculation. Is this really her? Did she retire for good? Will she ever return? But Ellen never confirmed or denied any of it. Hollywood, of course, moved on quickly. New talk shows appeared, new hosts took over, and the world found new faces to adore. Yet, for millions of viewers who had grown up watching her, something was missing. Her laughter, her warmth, the spontaneous dancing that made even ordinary days feel lighter, all of it was gone. And so her absence became symbolic. It wasn't just about one woman leaving show business. It was about what happens when a person gives everything to the world, their energy, their kindness, their humor, and the world gives back only noise and judgment. In the end, Ellen's disappearance felt less like a retreat and more like a statement. A quiet reminder that even the brightest lights need to rest. That sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's healing. And perhaps, somewhere beyond the spotlight, Ellen finally found what fame could never give her: peace.
At the temple, and then look at the...
Let me see Ellen's background. What? Oh, similar. That looks like a building, though. Like
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Is that a building in LA? That might be a building in LA.